get that one or does it get this
Let
one?
me ask you, traditionally on a lot of the stake bars that you see that are the tubular stake bars that are going to be a 3 or a 5, okay, that are actually running, you know, the other direction, okay, which is what I think, you know, that's what I have in inventory, so I'm always going to end up running them that way, okay. What's the pulling strength difference?
This is equivalent to the 3-hole bar.
Okay.
That's equivalent to the 5-hole bar.
All right, so running a 3-hole bar.
That way.
Oh, that way, okay.
Don't turn a 3-hole bar and run it this way and use all 3 holes because it's not going to...
One thing that you got to look at here is when this started to fail, it didn't fail this direction towards the tent. So you're not losing your tension. Tension is still solid. You're starting to come up this way. And that's what that back stake is doing for you. 3-hole bars, on the other hand, your center point is that middle stake. And you've got a plate underneath that you're driving through. When that starts to fail, it is coming this direction. It tends to roll up. So, depending on the size of the tent, this might give you more holding power, but then again, you may not need that much holding power. I mean, 3,700 pounds is a bunch of holding power. That strap is probably only good for about 5,000 anyway.
The reason we went to this is when we made the jump from small tents into the larger tents, I looked at those 3-hole bar and 5-hole bar, and the thing I didn't like about them was it took 10-foot pole spacing, and it now made it 6-foot pole spacing basically because of the, it just impeded. I looked at trip hazards, I looked at putting marquees, connecting tents, and I had all this stuff in the way. So we were just messing around in the driveway one day, and we turned this stuff around, and hey, look at that. 2 this way is the same as 3 this way. 3 this way is the same as 5 this way. And that's why we went to it. Is one better than the other? No, not really. There's pros and cons to each. I have seen 3-hole bars in certain soil conditions outperform this 2-hole thing almost 3 to 1. Very wet soil conditions.
But no, that is a lot. It's a much smaller footprint. Like if I was putting up one of my 100 wides, that's a lot smaller footprint.
Exactly.
Well, how wide do you go up to? 80.
The nice thing about the bars also is if you're using, say at a lace line, if you're using 2 guys that come down, you can use 1 5 or 6-hole bar to anchor both of those ground ratchets. Okay. Whereas in my system, I got to use 2 sets of this, 1 set and 1 set in order to achieve the
So
same
on your 80 wide, are you just using 1 in 1, or are you doubling up on an 80 wide?
At the lace line?
At the corners.
At the corners, I use 1 of these at this corner, 1 there, and then I use a third
You
one
do use
coming.
a third,
I
okay.
use a third one coming on.
All right.
And then I use
And then just
this,
1
this
at the
system at every intermediate all the way around, and I go back to that at every lace line.
Okay.
So I'm using that
So every lace line you're using 1, using that
at
at every intermediate,
leg.
okay, and then 3 on the corner.
Here in the corner.
It's a nicer system because it's a lot less stakes when you're looking at one of those 5-stake bars. Now I've got potentially 15 stakes if I'm tripling it up on that 100-wide corner.
For 15 years, you got to show me what the deal is, all right? Here's the trick he taught me. When you go to set these ratchets here, you don't really have to go through the motions of figuring out how long this has to be to preset it, okay? All you need to do is leave about a 2-foot tail, and you just put this in and you rotate it 1 revolution so that this slot is straight up and down. Now when I go to put this side pole in, all I need to do to set the tension on the tent is pull on this tail, and I can take the tension out of this to preset it, and it's locked going back this way, and it can't. So you don't have to be constantly opening and closing these ratchets, pulling, turning, twisting. All you have to do is set it once with a tail long enough to pull on, rotate that around so the slot's straight up and down. Now when I stand this pole up, I can just grab this and I can pull, and I can take all the slack out of it enough to do my preset before I put my center poles in, and it's not going to go anywhere because it's totally loaded again at 1,200 pounds. I tell you from experience, 40 wide, 60 wide, 80 wide, that's about what the static is on a corner when it's fully tensioned out. It's between 12 and 1,500 pounds. So you need something that's going to hold 12 to 1,500 pounds with no wind, with no Josh, with no Mother Nature, just sitting there. Laboratory condition. You need 12 to 1,500 pounds, static. I spliced this into one of my tents that we had up when I knew a storm was coming, just to sit back and take a look at it. 30-mile-an-hour winds, constant. I don't know what the gusts were. My guess is they were 40 to 45-mile-an-hour gusts. This little red indicator needle was right there. I'm sorry. About 4,400 pounds.
How big is that?
80 wide.
80 wide.
80 wide tent.
20-foot mast.
28-foot center pole. 8-foot side pole. I sat and watched that needle as the wind was blowing. Okay? 4,400 pounds is what that had to hold. What I saw after it was all over and done. On a corner. Okay? I've done this on 60 wides. I've done it on 40 wides. You need to really be looking at corner holding powers in the neighborhood of 27 to 3,000 pounds on up as an absolute bare minimum. Okay, you're going to see extreme numbers. I wish there was a way to do this more often, but I have a business to run because I'd love to be out playing all the time with this, but I've got a business to run, so I can't do it. But the numbers are pretty incredible when the wind starts to blow, and that's really what you have to plan for. I know it's 90 degrees out, it's beautiful, no wind, and you're setting the tent up. Everybody in the world is tempted to cheat. And beautiful weather, we don't need it. You really need not to have that mindset. You really need to look up at the sky with your storm glasses on. And every time you look at the sky, you need to see black clouds and tornadoes, because that's what you need to plan for all the time, regardless of the length of time that you're going to install it, regardless of size of tent, type of day. The first time I ever cheated, and it wasn't staking, it had to do with pole pads. Okay, pole pads, a little block of wood you put underneath the side poles to keep them from sinking in the ground. We put up a 60 by 150 tent. We had not had rain in forever. Everything was hard as concrete and dusty. We put up a 60 by 150. I needed to save 10 minutes. I blew off throwing out the pole pads and putting them under. That night, God spanked me. Okay? The rains came, and where does that water go? It runs off the side of the tent and right down to the side pole. It soaked at a complete line. Then we followed it up with some wind, and the wind blew, and every one of my 7-foot side poles became 5-foot side poles. Okay? That tent did not go down, but it was one of those 1:30 in the morning telephone calls, and get up, try and find some of your guys that are still sober and awake and get them out to help you and, deal with the problem. The point I'm trying to make is don't try and shortcut this thing, because eventually it's going to cause problems, okay? If it calls for 3 stakes, put 3 stakes in. Okay.
Ask you a question about the strap. Water factor on the top of that tent.
It's huge, yep.
All that 56.
All right, let's take this up in short intervals again. All right, go ahead. There, we're at 2,000 pounds. Not a bit of movement whatsoever. 2,500. We're starting to get a little bit of lift in the front. Go ahead. There's 2,800 pounds. Go ahead a little bit more. That's it. Stop there. We're going to break the hook. Now, this is a very good example